I want to start off with a HaRambam Pashut. From the end of the Rambam, a Siyum Rambam. I'm a funny guy, you know. I feel like a Siyum Rambam, we should actually talk Rambam. You go to Siyum Rambam, it's a political rally for love of Lubavitch, you know. Lubavitch is amazing, Lubavitch is great. I've written a Rambam. It's a Rambam, Siyum Rambam, I've written a Siyum Rambam. You bring Talmidei Chacham B'nei Torah. When I ran the first Nissi Garari made a Siyum, it must have been the first or the second year. The first, second year. So he had, I don't know what the right word in English is, he had the best cast. He brought Rabbi Soloveitchik to make the Siyum from Chicago. He brought the Simcha Elberg to make the Schola. Grace Rabbonim to Buffalo to Beit Shalom. It was not much better than where you were. Anyway, Rabbi Soloveitchik is a Messiah. And he starts to learn the first halacha of Perik and Beis, Hilchos Malachim. And after an hour, I heard this from Greenberg in Buffalo, he was there to see him. After an hour, he says, Halacha Beis. And he went on for another hour. Forget about the fact that there nobody else spoke besides for him, that to catch the plane back. He says, Halacha Beis. And Nachai shows, Halacha Gimel. Come to see him at Rambam, he talked for 2 hours, and he didn't understand what the problem was. He had more to say. He had prepared more. But the Rambam. So I want to share an idea which is very important in the Rebbe's Torah about the Rambam, and it's true. It's one of those perfect examples where you see how the Rambam is so consistent with Torah Chassidus, and it's a foundational idea in what people call the Rambam. The Rebbe has many hadronim on Rambam. But there's a hadrin that the Rebbe said in 1975, Toshon Lamadei Tes Kislev, and you can hear a tape. It's really wonderful to listen to. After you learn it, before you learn it, you're not going to know what's flying. And then the Rebbe edited that Siyum many times, and each time he finished editing, he said, "Now don't publish it." They would edit, and they couldn't understand why. The Rebbe kept on delaying the publishing of this hadrin, and it came out. Yud Aleph Nissen, the first Siyum, I'll never forget it. Yud Aleph Nissen, the first Siyum at Rambam with Yud Aleph Nissen. Tafshin Mem Hey, that's this year 39 years. In a month from now, he says, Chav Zayin Nissen will be, we started learning Rambam Chav Zayin Nissen, Sunday Chav Zayin Nissen, 40 years ago. It's going to be the 40th anniversary of Limud Rambam. So the following year, the Siyum was, the Rebbe called it, B'smichas L'yayim Ha'ledet Heshel Rambam. It's near the Rambam's birthday. The Rambam's birthday is Erev Pesach Achar Chatzos Hayom. The Rebbe repeated it many times. The Rambam, we know not just the day he was born, but the hour, which is very unusual. Most Gedolei Yisrael, we maybe know their yard site. Because when they passed away, they were already Gedolei Yisrael. You know, when they were born, they were not yet, that's the whole story with Moshe Rabbeinu and Haman and Chedesh Adar. That when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, if Haman knew when Moshe passed away, he knew when he was born also. He just didn't think it mattered. The person is born, he's not a tzaddik, he's a baby. But this is a different kind of tzaddik. This is, Nisma'ala Havai is Kula Oira. When Moshe Rabbeinu was born, Igvan Lichtik. And this Haman didn't understand. Haman could not understand that the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what he didn't understand, and that's why he saw it as a good omen that the Goyel fell on Chedesh Adar. But the Rambam was born at a Pesach, we know this somehow. So the Rebbe made the Siyum Yud Aleph Nissen. So before the Farbrengen, they gave out this Kudris. It was 50 pages. It's a book. And it has its own shad, if you know how it works. Every one of the Rebbeim is a different, there's something called Kovetz, Shalshelas, Ha'oyer. If you look at Lubavitch's Sfarim, it's a Kovetz, it's a publication of the Shalshelas, the chain of light, the Rebbeim. The Baal Shem Tov, the Mezritch Magid, and so on. Every Rebbe is a different heichel, a different palace. So the different shape of the border. So the Rebbe asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, if you're talking about the Rabbeim, it shouldn't be Kovetz Shalshelas Ha'oyer, it should be Kovetz Shalshelas Ha'mo'er. I should move closer, yeah. I'm sitting away from the table because of the mic. It should be Kovetz Shalshelas Ha'mo'er, the Rabbeim Ha'mo'er. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe, in Mo'er is Nishtake Nishtalshelas. It's true that the Rabbeim Ha'mo'er, but on the Madrega with the Rabbeim Ha'mo'er, there's no Shalshelas, there's no chain, it's one. So even though the Rabbeim themselves are Mo'er and there's no Shalshelas, but in their Torah there's Shalshelas Ha'oyer. So each one of the Rabbeim has their own heichal, it means a palace. And every heichal has different sha'ar, different gates. And it's hard to know exactly how this was developed, but by different Rabbeim, the sha'arim go differently. Like for example, by the Rebbe Marash, every sefer is a different sha'ar. So if he has, let's say, 25 Sfarim, it's different 25 gates. But by some Rabbeim, like for example, the Friedrich Rebbe, all the Maimorim are one sha'ar, all the Sichas are another sha'ar, all the letters are a third sha'ar. The Maimorim in Yiddish, the Rebbe writes in the letter, is a separate sha'ar. Our Rebbe has 10 sha'arim. I don't know, maybe they have more now. The Hayom Yom is its own sha'ar. The HaKodsh Pesach has its own sha'ar. Maimorim have their own sha'ar. All the Maimorim, all the Sichas have their own sha'ar. The Inyada Shateres Achsidis has its own sha'ar. And this Hadin and Rambam has its own sha'ar, its own gate. It's its own Metzias. And they printed it down, Krach Mem, of the Likutei Sichas they printed the Hadran. So it came out before the Farbrengen. It was 50 pages. It's a piece of work. It's something very special. And by the Farbrengen itself, the Rebbe made a second Hadran. So this Hadran that the Rebbe said in 1975, which is almost 50 years ago, and he gave it out 10 years later in 1985, Tashin Mem Hey. So it's a Hadran with a philosophical foundation. If you listen to the Sikha, as the Rebbe says it, he starts off with the Meir Nevuchim, with a piece of philosophy. That's how the Rebbe presents it. It's a near philosophy. And what is a near philosophy? And I'll use Chassidische Sprach, Chassidische Oisies. When you look at the creation from the perspective of Torah, there's two perspectives. When you look at the creation from the perspective of Torah, there's 2 points of view. One point of view is that the world doesn't exist. There's no world, it's only the Eibishter. But there's another point of view. And the other point of view is that there is a world. And that the world is representing the Eibishter. And the Rebbe proves from the structure of Rambam. From the structure of Rambam. And the structure of Rambam philosophically is that everything goes in a yes and a no, in a positive and a negative. That the Rambam holds that according to Torah there is a world. And the world is real and the world exists. And the reason the world exists, and the world is real, because the Eibishter exists, and the Eibishter is real. Now that sounds very simplistic, but you could learn the Hadran, and you'll see how the Rebbe explains it all. And that the purpose of the world, and the purpose of the Torah, is not that the world should stop being, but that the world should become a seat for Elikus. That's how the Rebbe presents it. The philosophy of this Hadran is that there's a world. The world exists, absolutely exists. But its existence is Torah. Its existence is Yiddishkeit. And Mashiach represents the end of the world. Mashiach represents the end of the world, means Mashiach represents the world in its best form. The world in its best form exists, and it's full of Torah. It's full of Torah, right? The classic expression that we know from the Sichas is Shleimus HaTorah v'Mitzvah, right? We're Lubavitchers, right? I mean, a lot of people are younger than I am. So it's I cannot say you remember, but the Rebbe's expressions, how many times did the Rebbe say Shleimus HaTorah, Shleimus HaAm, Shleimus HaOretz, the whole Torah, the whole nation, the whole Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael l'gvuleiseha, the Rebbe would say. The Eretz Yisrael Ashleima, not to give 1 inch of Eretz Yisrael. Because Eretz Yisrael, if you take away 1 inch of Eretz Yisrael, you're not missing an inch of Eretz Yisrael, you're missing all of Eretz Yisrael. Because Eretz Yisrael is a union, it's a unity, it's a single point that radiates over a certain territory. It has to be a whole Eretz Yisrael. It has to be a whole Jewish nation. Not one Yid Chas v'Shalom should be left out of that people. And you cannot say, we don't need him. Every Jew is necessary. And then there's Shleimus HaTorah. Shleimus HaTorah, Shleimus HaAm, Shleimus HaTorah means you have 613 mitzvahs. And the Rebbe says that one of the Yom HaMashiach is, and he proves it from the Rambam, that until Mashiach comes, we never ever did all 613 mitzvahs. Never. And the Rebbe says, if we were missing 1/3 of one mitzvah out of 630 mitzvahs, that means the other 612 and 2/3 mitzvahs were incomplete. They're not whole. You're missing a detail. You're missing a detail, so the whole is crippled. You know how many times the Rebbe spoke about the idea that Matan Teira lo yir da par. Everybody knows this, right? This is a word from the earlier Rabbi. That Hashem gave the Teira once. When Mashiach comes, there's no new giving of Torah. There's Torah Chadasha, the Mashiach reveals new secrets of Torah, but there's no event of giving Torah a second time. Because Torah, either you have the whole thing, or you have none of it. If Torah's missing one hair, one word, one letter, it's not Torah. If the Jewish nation is missing one person, one yid, it's not the Jewish people. If Eretz Yisrael is missing 1 inch, it's not Eretz Yisrael to be whole. And until Mashiach comes, Torah is not whole. And the Rebbe brings together these three wholenesses. That the Rambam talks about the world exists. And the wholeness of the world requires the wholeness of the Torah and the wholeness of the Jewish people. In other words, it's about manifestation. You know, in the 19th century in America, they used to say, manifest destiny. It was an American expression. Whatever that means. Manifestation means to kick the Indians out. That's what it means. It's a nice way of saying it. The Jewish people have a manifest destiny. And the manifest destiny of the Jewish people is really the whole world. Every goy and every yid should serve Hashem, each person in his own way. And the end is going to be, man. It's not about the miracles. It's not about the miracles. It's about the whole of Hashem's Torah and the whole of Hashem's nation, living in the whole of Eretz Yisrael, and all the nations of the world living in the land that the Eibishter gave them, practicing all of the mitzvahs that the Eibishter gave Goyim. That is the end of the world. And it's not the end of the world that means Chas v'Shalom, there isn't a world. The end of the world means that this world is dir b'tachtonim. The Rambam doesn't use the expression dir b'tachtonim, right? It's not the Rambam's language, but that's the Higoy. That's what the Rebbe teaches us what the Rambam is teaching us. The Rebbe is teaching us, the Rambam is teaching us, the Rambam agrees with Alter Rebbe, with Chassidus, that the end of the world is not that the world stops being. The end of the world is the world becomes a seat for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the seat for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what the Rambam is, the Sefer Rambam is. You start off with the Eibishter, and the Rebbe explains the two sides, the Chiyuv and the Shlila. Yeseides v'amuda chochmas leida shesha matzerishin. The first halacha is, you know that the Eibishter is a matzerishin. Matzerishin doesn't mean he exists. He exists existentially. The Eibishter exists existentially. You know what that means? The Eibishter makes a tzimtzum in himself to exist the same way you exist and I exist, so that our existence should be true. Hashem, the first halacha, you say that is leida. It's not to believe, it's to know and understand, as Rabbi Grai said before. What do you have to know? Before the Eibishter created the world, the Eibishter created himself. But before the Eibishter created himself, the Eibishter didn't exist, that's circular. The Eibishter made himself into a Metzias Nimtza. He brought himself into a place where his existence and our existence have a proximity. What is the second halacha in the Rambam? If you're going to go up to a higher madrega of das, that's how Rebbe explains it. And you're going to say that Hashem exists not as a Metzias, not that there's no Eibishter, that's stupid. That's foolish. You're going to go to a higher madrega of das, and you're going to say that Hashem exists, not existential. That means the Eibishter creates the world in such a way that he doesn't put himself into the world. So the Rambam, ein davar acher yochel leimatzis, nothing else could exist. Now there wouldn't be a world, but the world would be a lie. So the first two halachas in the Rambam is teaching us, the first thing the Eibishter did was the Eibishter made himself into a Metzias. Matzah Rishon rather than Einei Matzah. Why? Because Hashem wants our Metzias to be real. Hashem wants our world to be real. Hashem wants our actions to matter. And He gave us a Torah with 613 mitzvahs. And He gave us a planet with, the Tanya of these days. The Tanya of these days. What's the Chitas? Yesterday, today, tomorrow. It's Gamas Ha'olam Nasam Belibe. The world is in the heart of every Jew. Each one of us has a piece of the earth. And we live in Pomona, we live in Brooklyn, and I have a piece in the Pacific Ocean. You have a piece of the Antarctica, and you have a piece of Chveis. We sit where we live, we do our avodah, and we make this world Eibishter's. And the end game is, not that the world stops being, but this world becomes a Metzias of Eibishter. This is how the Rebbe understands the Rambam. So the Rebbe teaches the Rambam to us, and it's exactly in concert with the Rebbe's whole approach. The Sava Kodesh Baruch Hu is the world matters. Every person matters, every action matters, the world matters, what the Eibishter wants. So L'chaim L'vrocha, L'chaim L'Alman Benchen, that there should be, everybody has a home. Everybody has a home, everybody has a family. Mitzvah Hashem, I hope. Yeah, that's your little piece of the world. And the kavanah is not that piece of the world should not be. The kavanah is that piece of the world should be a seat for Torah, should be a seat for the Eibishter. And if it's a seat for Torah b'tachsa shleimus, if it's a complete seat, and it's filled with all the people and all the entities and all the mitzvahs need to sit in that space, that's Mashiach in our world. That's Mashiach in our life. That's menucha, and that's simcha, and that's shalom, and that's bracha, and that's atzlocha. So l'chaim v'levracha, Hashem should bless us all, that in our home, in our little dira b'tachtainim, as the Rebbe says to young couples, there should be shleimus. Nothing should be missing, nothing should be ill, and nothing should be disparate, nothing should be looking in a different direction. It should be unified, and it should be together, and it should be healthy, and there should be space for everything and everybody. L'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim tev l'shom, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, u'malared de'ya'es Hashem, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim v'levracha,